Hello everyone, it's Friday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. This week is special indeed in that the members of BTS are celebrating their 10-year journey on the road to becoming global megastars. BTS is currently on a temporary hiatus, but its 10th anniversary is being fully enjoyed both by global fans and Seoul city, parts of which have been lit up in purple, the band's signature color. Following in the footsteps of BTS, we are seeing other groups such as Stray Kids and 50/50 garnering attention more than ever before. What allowed BTS to break into the mainstream and rise to the top of the scene? And who are the other K-pop rookies we need to take a look at? For more on what's going on in the K-pop scene, we have invited Bernie Cho, the president of DFSB Kollective. Bernie, welcome to the show.
Oh, good to be back.
Now, Bernie, it has already been 10 years since BTS debuted, and over the past decade, they've had some remarkable achievements. But what is it about BTS that made fans from across the whole world fall in love with them?
I'm probably not the right person to ask, and for good reason, is because BTS over the past 10 years has gotten so big and so popular. Books have been written about them, articles are always coming about them. You know, they've been the highest trended artist, or for that matter, celebrity in the world for years running. The fact that they even have academic forums dedicated to them and professors talking about and teaching anything and everything about BTS. You wonder whether they're being professors or fanboys or fangirls. But, you know, that all being said, what definitely sort of rings true with the global success of BTS is the fact that, you know, they're recognized and more importantly respected as artists and producers. You know, in addition to their band activities, they've done a lot of very high-profile collaborations with not just local but international artists. And even in their post-BTS hiatus status at the moment, each and every one of the members have gone on and have done just, you know, huge, tremendous things as solo acts as well. So there's a lot to love about BTS, and we probably don't have enough time to check off every single item on a checklist.
Right, I see. Now, over 40 BTS songs charted on the Billboard music charts, as we all know, and the group became the first K-pop act to be nominated for a Grammy. What impact did BTS have, especially in terms of K-pop's status in the global music industry, in your opinion?
Well, you know, before BTS came along, you know, K-pop for the most part, for the large part, was really kind of associated and probably affiliated with the success of Psy and Gangnam Style. But the reality is at that time, a lot of people were wondering, but more importantly, thinking that that could have possibly maybe been a one-hit wonder, and K-pop was probably maybe more of a fad than a phenomena. BTS very much slammed that theory shut. They made sort of, in many ways, I think, manifested K-pop to not only be recognized but respected worldwide because, you know, aesthetics aside and, you know, beats, rhymes, rhythms aside, the numbers that BTS was able to deliver, not just as a band, but as a Korean band, as a K-pop band, they in many ways were able to make the K silent because they went on to become a pop band. And not just a pop band, but the biggest pop band, and for many years running, the biggest pop act in the world. But what was interesting is that, you know, BTS was not an anomaly. You know, side by side, right behind them, other K-pop acts were very much following in their footsteps, and very large ones at that. Whether it be Blackpink or some of the acts that you just mentioned earlier that are coming out, 17, and New Jeans, the Seraphim, Stray Kids. The point being, though, is that they really were not only the face, but in many ways the forefront of a movement where K-pop now is recognized as not just a genre, but one of the most popular music genres currently hitting the airwaves around the world.
Right. I will take a look at the other K-pop acts that are currently garnering attention in global music industry as well. But before that, I'd like to ask you this. After releasing the anthology album Proof, they announced a hiatus from group activities. And ever since then, as you have pointed out before, each member has been focusing on their individual career. How has each member's solo journey been up until now?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people, particularly not just fans, but financial analysts, were very concerned and very worried when BTS wasn't necessarily performing for the Army, but actually had to go to the Army There were a lot of concerns that the HYBE would take a huge hit in terms of their stock price. But if anything, HYBE is not only surviving, but thriving in large part to not only the various other bands that are on the label, but more importantly, the solo success of each and every one of the members. For me, what's been impressive is not so much their sales, which has always been a given. They're always going to be near or at the top of the charts. But the other activities they've been doing, I know for me with Jimin, what really threw me off in a good way was the fact that he appears on the new Fast X soundtrack. With Suga, he's the first BTS member to go on a solo world tour. RM, he decided to downsize and go big by performing on the NPR Tiny Desk. J-Hope, he absolutely crushed it as a headliner at Lollapalooza. And Jin decided to go back and do another comeback collaboration with Coldplay and was able to debut his new single, Astronaut, in, of all places, Buenos Aires, Argentina. And of course, we have to talk about V, who has been doing a lot more on television. And then last but not least, Jungkook, who not only performed, but performed the theme song for the most recent World Cup. So all of them have been, doing phenomenally well as solo acts. And so if anything, I think the brand power of BTS really has been a 1 + 1 = 3 effect by having each and one of these solo acts having very individual, very different styles of success. And so when the boys do get back together, I think they're going to possibly maybe go to the next level with all of the accolades they've accrued as solo acts.
Right, as you have pointed out, their solo journeys are remarkable enough right now, but we do hope that we can see them back as a whole in the near future. Now moving on to other K-pop acts, Bernie. Stray Kids topped the US Billboard 200 chart this week for the third time with their third full-length album, 5 Star. And this made them the only Korean act other than BTS to top Billboard's main albums chart more than twice. What is it about that is attracting global attention?
Well, I think we can't hide from the fact that the album title was absolutely brilliant. If anything, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy to throw down that their album, 5 Star. Look, it was going to likely get 5 stars anyway, but they put it out there. They saved the critics a lot of work by putting it out there. But what's interesting is the choice of the number 5, because for some reason, the number 5 kept popping up over and over again. Right now, their new album, 5 Star, is currently the 5th best-selling album of all time globally, clocking at about 5 million pre-sold albums. They actually surpassed Elvis 30, the number 1 hits album, as the 5th largest pre-sales album of all time. And also, the fact is that 5 Star album did pre-sales of nearly 5 million, which right now is the new K-pop record. That's 17 set twice. Stray Kids just recently broke that. And again, coming back to the number 5, their most recent world tour, the Maniac Tour, where they played to about 42 sold-out arena and stadiums around the world. They had nearly over 500,000 attendees on this last world tour. And so, kudos and credit to Stray Kids. 5 Star has lived up to, its branding, naming, and positioning, and then some. And again, what's really interesting about Stray Kids is that we really didn't see them much in Korea because they've been around the world touring. And again, YouTube came out with some statistics showing that South Korea is actually not even a top 10 market for Stray Kids. Their 3 biggest markets in the world for Stray Kids is number 1, Mexico, number 2, the US, and number 3, Japan. But again, I think if you had to say there was one thing common about Stray Kids and BTS, besides all of them being incredibly talented, good-looking guys, they're also known as a self-producing boy band as well. So they, can not only dance, can not only sing, but they actually produce as well. And I think this is becoming more and more of a common theme, and I hope to see this become more and more the rule and less the exception.
Right, their activities are just 5 star indeed. I believe this would be our last question, Bernie, but 50/50, a 4-member girl group, became the fastest K-pop group to enter the US Billboard Hot 100 since their debut last November. And an interesting fact about them is that the group was put together by a small agency, and this deserves extra attention, in my opinion, as usually the success of a group often matches the size of the agency itself. What does 50/50's success hint at?
I think for anybody in the industry, the 50-50 success was completely unexpected, but more, nonetheless wonderful because it really came out of nowhere. And there are a lot of people in the industry studying what did 50-50 do right. Obviously, the song is great. Obviously, the women in the band are phenomenal. But it's interesting because a lot of the strategy was very deliberate and some of it might have been happenstance. I know for me, I got winded, I caught 50-50 popping up on my TikTok feed when John Cena, the wrestler slash actor, and again, I don't know what it is about Fast X, but when he was caught doing a meme bouncing headphones to the song, that went completely viral. And, and what's interesting is it wasn't the original version or the English version. It was the sped up version that was uploaded by who we believe was a fan at C51. That sped up version on TikTok went viral and over 6 million videos have been made by fans around the world on TikTok. And so the success of 50-50, I mean, usually the go-to viral video platform has been YouTube up until now, but 50-50 really knew how to work, and more importantly, own TikTok as their platform of choice to go global. And again, what's really fascinating is that they are slowly but surely climbing charts around the world with things that other K-pop acts, for whatever reason, have struggled with. One of them is the fact that they've been doing a tremendous amount of streaming, not only on TikTok, but on all video platforms, whereas other K-pop acts find a lot of success through just good old-fashioned CD sales. But more importantly is, as soon as 50-50 started blowing up, they teamed up with Warner Music. And right now, 50-50 Cupid is on heavy rotation on U.S. radio's airplay. And this is something that even acts like Blackpink or BTS have had a hard time with. And right now, in terms of chart rankings, when it comes to radio airplay, 50-50 has been one of the best performing K-pop songs here in the U.S. on radio. And that has to do with the fact that it didn't take them years of grinding. I mean, they were able to hit these milestones in a matter of months. And so their trajectory is still going strong. It's still going higher. And we'll see how far this can go. But they've already hit #1 in many charts around the world. And I think they're going to continue that momentum. So yeah, this ride's not over yet.
Right, I can definitely see why their success is so fascinating. All right, Bernie, that's all the questions I have. Thank you for your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, movie theaters are seeing audiences return in bigger numbers following a slump in attendance for Korean-made films. And for this, we invite Jason Berchevez, film critic and professor at Kyungdong University. Jason, good to see you again.
Hello, Bogyong. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Now, Jason, South Korean crime action film, The Roundup No Way Out, has already reached over 8 million ticket sales, and experts are saying that it has become a crime action franchise. What is drawing so many moviegoers?
Well, yes, I mean, this is the third film of the franchise so far. The first film in 2017, The Outlaws, featuring, of course, Ma Dong-seok, as this kind of police detective, somewhat unorthodox in his approach, and, very enjoyable. I think it kind of follows the veteran playbook, a kind of entertaining action film. Yeah, it was a sleeper hit during the Chuseok season. And then the sequel, The Roundup, was released last year and sold, well over 10 million tickets. Right. And I think, that film, it was partly shot, partly set in Vietnam, and then the second half of the film is, you have this incredibly thrilling set piece, I think in Ilsan, which is just located just outside Seoul. And it's just really, cathartic, that ending, some really good villains as well. Son Seok-kyu is brilliant in the second film as the villain. And so I think, this third film, although if I'm honest, I don't think it's as good as the first two, but certainly, I think people were very excited to go and see the film, and it generates a lot of, chatter, conversations, amongst people in the office, and, asking people, if they've seen it, and it's not long before, the success of the film kind of snowballs, and that's what happened. I mean, I knew the film would do very well, but I was actually quite surprised by the number of viewers it kind of attracted on its opening weekend. On the Saturday, it attracted over over 1 million views. And that's truly extraordinary. Certainly in the current climate that we're in terms of Korea's been somewhat late in terms of the theatrical market, kind of staging a recovery. And actually, the only films that are doing really well at the moment are the Roundup films. So, everyone seems to like Ma Dong-seok as this kind of action hero. We saw that kind of, I guess, one of the first films we saw him in as that kind of action hero was, of course, in Yoon Sang-ho's Train to Busan, which was this huge kind of global box office hit, and he's like punching his way through the train, and I think you see him a lot. You see him punching quite a lot in this film, and I think certainly audiences seem to respond to that.
Right. I haven't seen the movie, but I should definitely see it to join the chat with the other people. But before the Roundup, Jason, Korean-made movies were actually going through some slump, and according to the Korean Film Council, due to a lack of hit films, Korean movies' market share at the local box office fell below 20% last month. And though we're expected to see the market share to a little bit go up because of the Roundup that we have been talking about, it surely seems that Korean films are performing a little bit poorly right now. Why is this?
Yeah, it's quite a complex situation. Certainly, a lot of films have struggled earlier on this year. The Point Men, this is a film released in January. Yoo Sun-rae directed the film, set in Afghanistan, starring Hyun-bin and Hwan Jung-min. The film underperformed. Phantom also underperformed at the box office, of a kind of colonial era film. Starring Park So-dam. But it's been difficult for the industry, and I think part of that is down to, I think a lot of it's down to the ticketing prices. So, when I first came to Korea, it was, an average ticket, at least for me anyway, it was what, 8,000 won, 6,000 won for a morning kind of showing. But now, the weekend, it's what, 14,000, 15,000 won. And so it is very expensive, and I think people see it as very expensive. And so they kind of, whereas before they would happily go and see a whole range of films, whereas now people are like, well, we'll wait for a film that we know we expect to be quite good, or is worth the money to invest, or worth the cost of a ticket to go to the cinema, as a couple, as a family, along with the food as well, the popcorn. And so I think the perception is that going to cinema now is just really, really expensive. I mean, the comparison that some people look at is the price of jjajangmyeon and how much that has increased over the years. Kind of, I guess the equivalent would be a Big Mac, looking at the price of a Big Mac. And the price of a cinema ticket has increased 1.5 more times than jjajangmyeon. So, this is the kind of Chinese Korean food that's very famous here. And so, it is expensive. I think streaming as well, the whole ecosystem has certainly kind of is evolving, and a lot of people are watching films at home. They've got various kind of platforms that they can choose from, and on those platforms there are countless films and shows to watch. And so I think it is a bit of a struggle for Korean films, and as a result I think producers and studios are very hesitant in releasing films. So there's not a lot out there, but certain films are performing well. Sequels, the Roundup is a good example of that. Top Gun last year, Maverick, Avatar, certain films are performing well, quite often on kind of premium formats, the IMAX screens, the kind of luxury, seating and so on and so forth. I mean, it's interesting to look at America, North America, and also Europe, France, for example. Those markets are seeing a recovery. So Korea, in a way, is the outlier here. So I'm hoping the real test actually is this summer when we see a number of Korean films released. They need to perform.
Right. I mean, I totally agree that the price could be quite of a problem for the moviegoers right now, but I don't think lowering the price would be the only solution, right? How could we tackle these challenges this Korean movie industry is facing right now?
Yeah, I mean, It's difficult. Certainly during the coronavirus pandemic, the Korean Film Council was able to kind of find ways, through promotions, for example, and working with the exhibitors to try and give them a greater cut, and the distributors per movie ticket. But I think at the moment, inflation is affecting everyone. Energy prices, going out, and so maybe we get to a point where the cinema isn't seen as expensive. I think hopefully this summer we'll see a recovery, because we've got a number of tentpole films that are coming out. When I say tentpole, I mean these kind of big, expensive studio films. We've got a new film from Yoo Sung-won. We've got a new film from Kim Sung-hun. And we've also got The Moon by Kim Young-hwa. This is a film set on the moon. And so, these films really have to perform. We've got Concrete Utopia, which is another kind of Korean disaster film starring Lee Byung-hun. I mentioned Yoo Sung-won, I should mention earlier, with Veteran. And so his new film, Smugglers, starring Kim Hae-soo. And so the studios are putting their films out this summer. And what we need is for them to perform better than the films did last summer. Because last summer we had The Hunt, which did okay, directed and starring Lee Jung-jae. But it did, it wasn't a huge box office hit. Hansan, the prequel to Roaring Currents, did okay, but again, wasn't as successful as Roaring Currents. And then we had Alienoid, which was a big box office disaster. Emergency Declaration featuring Lee Byung-hun. That was a box office disappointment. So we need the films to perform well this summer. It's great that the Roundup is doing, the third film of the kind of the Roundup series. It's great that it's doing so well, but we need the films throughout the summer to perform, because we've got some Hollywood competition. We've got the new Mission Impossible film starring Tom Cruise. After Top Gun last year, I expect that to do well. We've got Indiana Jones. I'm not so sure about how well that performs in Korea, but certainly the Christopher Nolan film, Oppenheimer, I see that performing very well in Korea. So, Korean films hopefully will do well this summer.
Yeah, I mean, as a movie lover myself, I should definitely look forward to the summer tentpole movies to come up.
Yes. Lots to look forward to this summer, absolutely.
Right. All right, I'd like to ask you more, but unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Jason, for your insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be next Monday with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the weekend, and goodbye.